Hey guys, big thank you to everyone who contributed to the Patreon. I foolishly didn't anticipate people supporting it until the second or third or even fourth episode, and well, because I'm a dummy, I didn't prepare for this episode. But episode 3 will include all rewards as well as video. My guest for this episode is one of the best, if not the best, hypecasters in StarCraft 2. Passion and sincerity is what this guy is all about. It's the one and only Maynarde. Hello everyone, this is Caster Calls with ZombieGrub, and it's not just ZombieGrub, I also got Maynarde. I said he'd be the next guy up on the list, and he absolutely is. He actually immediately responded in affirmative, and he would like to do this, and pretty much as soon as possible, so that made things a lot easier for me. Thank you so much, Maynarde, for being here. How you doing?
It is my absolute pleasure. Anytime, ZombieGrub. We've done a few interviews before, I think, or maybe it's just the one actually. But yeah,
Just the one.
But I'm a fan of the podcast format. I'm a fan of you, commentary, and all those things. So it's a no-brainer to show up, and I'm doing great. Just finished a pretty good stream. I was just casting a bunch of subscriber replays and having a good time with the people's StarCraft, as I like to call it, because it's very rarely pro gamers. I did actually have some pro gamers submitted replays, but they're just like fans that send in the replays rather than the actual pros sending in replays. I really wish pros did do that though. They just the ones that sub to me.
Yeah, I can't think of too many pros who actually sub to streamers, other than Roddy for the replays.
Roddy's definitely got some. Waddy definitely has some, but they would be like the two main people that have pro subs. I think Special's like a sub of Pig, but just because he likes like Pokemon and there's like stream avatars, but I don't know.
Oh.
I have a very little pros that subs to me, very little.
Yeah, you do that sub replay casting like seriously, like all the time. People love your subscriber replay casting.
Yeah, it started off being a thing that I thought it would be like, okay, this is going to be a slow broadcast and no one will give a shit, but it's just for the subs and the subs will be happy. So, some hopefully a little bit of retention. The subs want to stick around because they're getting the added benefit of these casts. Maybe more people want to come in because they like my commentary and they're like, oh, okay, this is putting me over the edge and I want this. But it was like I never expected viewership or really, because the StarCraft community kind of just wants to watch high-level StarCraft and they don't really care about, watching a gold player play a TVT or something like that. Like they very rarely care. But strangely enough, it's actually been growing quite a bit, the sub-replay streaming. So I've noticed my average for that goes up quite nicely. And sometimes they're the most economically lucrative streams that I have, like even more so than, say, an Alima League or something like that, which is generally when I have the most viewership. So it's kind of hard to tell, but Twitch is kind of those weird things. I mean, you know that Twitch is very strange. Sometimes you'll have 1,000 viewers and make $30, and sometimes you'll have 100 viewers and make thousands. It's really, it's hard. It's a hard metric to follow.
Yes, it really is. I mean, you're absolutely right. Sometimes the highest viewership gets absolutely nothing. Also depends a bit on time zone, apparently.
Yep.
Europeans a little bit. Actually, I think Roddy once described this very well, that they're not a tipping culture, which is why American time zones seem to do better, just in terms of getting subs and tips. So I always thought that was a really good point.
100% fact there. Like I've got we both have all the metrics of when we stream, and my viewership is very American heavy. Even in European time zones, I have like nothing. I've never had less than a 50% America viewership. Like even in European time zones for some reason. And yeah, they're the ones that generally get a little bit nuts with the support, but yeah.
Well, on the topic of the sub replay castings, I think it is something that's very unique to you. That every streamer, well, not every streamer, a lot of streamers that I know, including myself, do sub replay casting, and it's sometimes nothing, honestly, and other times it's maybe max 5 replays, for the entire week, because I do mine weekly. You actually get dozens.
Yes.
Do you know why that happens? Do you have a theory about it?
I don't know why. Maybe I just have some nuts people that that for some reason I actually feel like part of me thinks that I might have been one of the first to do that, the sub replay thing, because I don't remember anyone doing it before. Like I know it must have existed, so people have been doing it, but it was something that I was like, oh, I'm going to make this like a promoted feature. This is something that I'm going to have as a command in my chat, and I'm going to make it like something I talk about on the regular. Like it's something I like to, something I try to remember in my sort of, how in StarCraft you have like a a build order cycle. You have a cycle in your brain. It's like tap this hotkey, tap this hotkey, tap this hotkey. I have a cycle in my brain would just be like, every couple hours talk about, hey, if you're enjoying what you're watching, please click follow because it's free. And if you would like to sub, you can do that. And you have this benefit if you do, blah, 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 blah. Try and, sell your stream as a product because it is. And these sub replays, I leaned into it pretty heavily. I also have a very, my specific style of casting is very entertainment focused, very high energy. And I think people really dig that, especially like the lower league players. They're just like, I want my game to feel like I'm watching a WCS or something like that. I want, and it's been weird. It's gotten to the weird point where sometimes people send it in. And they're like, intro my game like it's round of 8 WCS. And I'm like, I can't actually like that's. I mean, I understand why you want that, but I can't just do that. That's not something that I can just fake. It's like it's the energy of the room and it's the moment, like all that stuff contributes to the fact that I'm screaming into my microphone. Also, I'm pretty sure my microphone can't take that. Like if I just do the thing that I do with the player intros at like the big moments of the big finals. But yeah, I think that it's gotten really to the point where I have to actually I've had to find a way to stop as many replays coming in. It's gone really unmanageable to the point where I was or not manageable. That's probably the correct sentence. But I had too many replays where I couldn't actually cover them all, and I'm like, well, this isn't what I want. I want every subscriber to be able to get a replay cast. So I've made it so that now to be able to broadcast something other than sub replay cast, because I don't want to do it every day. I want it to be a special thing, a once a week thing, like what you do. I've had to make rules and also have a window where people can submit casts and not and close that channel down for the rest of the week. So there's now a 24-hour window when you can submit casts from like Friday Pacific time to Saturday Pacific time midnight. And then once that window's closed, I don't take any replays. I close the channel because I have too many. And then like even tier 3s would be like, oh, I'm a tier 3, so I can send in 3 replays, which was the deal a week ago. And it's just very recently changed to be like, no, tier 3s now can't send in 3 replays. Now you can only send in 1, but you get priority. Like I'll have cast your replays first. Because then it was like, there would be every tier 3 person would never miss a replay sub day. They are tier 3s because they want to send in 3 replays, and people would bump up from tier 1 to tier 2 because they want to send in 2. And I'm like, oh God, there's like so many from the same person. And, last week I had 26 replays and I'm like, and I streamed for 6 hours. And I'm like, okay, at the end of 6 hours, I still have 10 left. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this hasn't worked yet. I need to come up with a different idea. So now the different idea is the different tiers get priority rather than amount, which is so much better. Like it's already today has gone so much better. So
that is an insane amount of people. That's actually more than I thought was happening. Like I always looked at your sub replay chat, especially if I had anything to submit, and I was like, "Ooh, that's a lot." But to hear all the requirements that you've now set up, that marks you as a pretty popular caster. But it's a good segue. Like you've this is all about casting, right? Like you always have prided yourself and been true to this as well, as far as I've seen, that you just can't fake passion. Not only are you known as a passionate play-by-play caster, probably the most hyped guy that StarCraft 2 has to offer, and I know some people say tasteless, but I don't know, guys. But you are totally genuine with all of it, and you've never been shy to just make sure everyone knows that.
Yeah, I think the reason why I've said that sort of like I've touched on the genuine part of it is because I've never been bothered by anyone saying that I'm fat or ugly or dumb, which is a lot of the negative feedback I've ever gotten as a commentator. That's kind of all the things that people go to because it's it's easy to do when you're 12. But the thing that bothered me one time was when I saw people say that it was fake hype or that I was being fake. And that bothered me for some reason. I don't know. I wasn't expecting it. I remember reading that comment and going, "Oh, that actually hurts. That's terrible." So, like, there's been a few occasions where I'm streaming and I'll bring that up with people, like, and I've brought it up with you guys as well, like the other commentators at events. I'm just like, this, people calling me not genuine really does sting because, like, I am very much, and you nailed it. I pride myself on being a pretty genuine guy. Because I was just brought up that way to be pretty much, black and white as far as a person's concerned. I'm not complicated. My heart's on my sleeve for the most part. I can't pretend to be happy if I'm sad. I can't pretend to be sad if I'm happy. I can't pretend to be excited if I'm bored. I can't do that. However I am acting is how I am, is how I feel usually. this is the same with broadcasts when I'm casting. Part of the reason why I've stuck around in StarCraft for so long is, not any particular brand loyalty or anything like that. Like I'm not. I mean, I used to be a Blizzard fanboy. I'm certainly not anymore. Not for many years, but StarCraft 2, I'm definitely a massive fan of, and I love the game more than anything else. And it's just, I'm open to another game or another esport that takes my fancy, but just nothing has. I can't. I've had offers back in the day, like way back in the day. I'm like 2015, before Legacy of the Void launched. Even I had an offer to go to America to stay, in Los Angeles and move my whole life over there and work for ESL in their North American office, which I don't think exists anymore. I'm not too sure about that, but
I don't think so.
I don't think so. But, they wanted me to move there and be their stage host and also commentator for, a bunch of titles, like for Counter-Strike, for Heroes of the Storm, which was a lot more active back then. And basically be what Machine is now. Machine, the super successful commentator / host for Counter-Strike. And funnily enough, me and Machine and I are friends, and we met each other at IM Katowice and been friends for a few years. But I was going to be that guy basically before Machine was sort of on the scene, and maybe it's a giant missed opportunity, but I remember having the call with Carmack, who was the guy that was offering it to me, and I'm just like, I just can't fake that excitement. That's I can do the StarCraft casts, and you will get what you want out of me, but I think you want that excited, really energetic guy, and I really don't think I have it in me to be that for Heroes of the Storm, which I really didn't care about, and Counter-Strike, which I have a passing fancy in. Like I like Counter-Strike. I like shooters. Like I'm a FPS guy, but I'm not super into the esport, and I won't be able to just explode over huge plays and stuff like that very easily, like I would in StarCraft, which is just so far up my alley that it's bought real estate and started a family. Like it's just such a it's just like exactly what I wanted in esport in StarCraft, and that one was one that snuck up on me as well, being an FPS guy and having an RTS be the ultimate in esport for me. Like it's just it snuck up on me, but it's real, and I'm just like, I feel so much excitement for this game, and it's not gone away. Like even 10 years later, it's still there.
Mm-hmm. Well, I know for me at least, and I think some other commentators as well, but whenever I go up on the stage, like I feel like I have to put on a little bit of a mask. I think you know me
Oh
very
yeah,
well personally, and you also know me well as a commentator, but I'm pretty different from the green room to the stage. But I always felt that you were actually pretty on a level. Do you consider yourself someone who has to put on any type of mask or put on any showmanship, or is it just really that genuine?
I think everyone does to an extent. Like even like I would say the most similar guy of the casting crew right now, the guy that's the most similar off stage as he is backstage is Rotterdam. Like Rotterdam is almost the exact same person on the desk as he is off the desk, like back in the room with us. But he'll do a few casterisms here and there. Even he will have a few casterisms where he'll have like a certain inflection in his voice or something where it kind of is a nice clean handoff, which is something you would never do in a real conversation with someone, but you would in a cast. And I would say that I know in myself that I definitely put on a broadcast persona where it's like basically me, but maybe dialed up to 11, like just to bring a little bit more energy, just to punch a little bit more. Usually in desk segments, I'm very much myself, like in desk segments with James and with and whoever, if we're at an event and we're doing an analysis desk thing, that's generally like exactly who I am. But maybe even then, maybe lower energy because I'm trying to level it out with some guys that I'm talking to. Like if I'm exploding and two people are talking very softly about analysis, then that's kind of dumb. But in a cast, I definitely turn it up a little bit more. Like I'll be a little bit more, what do you call it? I'll like those intonations I was talking about Rotterdam, I'll bring on a bit of the radio guy voice, like instead of just saying, hey guys, welcome to WCS, blah, 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 or, it's an old brand. Hey guys, welcome to ESL Pro Tour Masters. I'm Maynard and blah, blah, blah. It'll be like, a little bit more of the, the smoother curves, like, hey guys, welcome to the Pro Tour. What up, StarCraft fans? That kind of thing. Like a little bit more of like a slide into that intro with a little bit more of like a, trying to go for that audio butter sort of, the mellifluous kind of tones to try and make things a little bit more like you're listening to it on the radio kind of thing. I got a lot of inspiration from radio commentators back in the day, like when I was young, listening to all those football and stuff. And that took a little bit. Well, not like a lot, but a few of the things that I took from them, which I thought is really good. It sounds really good in a cast, I think, when other people do it as well.
Yeah. I think there's a certain everyone talks about casting being something that you can kind of have your own opinion about, right? Like there's no perfect way to cast, but I think there are certainly just mechanics to casting. And
Hmm.
those broadcast guys absolutely were the first ones to develop that. To listen to like the old, narratives from like the 1920s, like is
Hmm.
actually kind of there's a certain like sound quality to their voice, right? That's just it's something that you want to replicate no matter what you're doing as long as you're literally speaking to a person. But anyways, like taking this and going back to very beginnings, the Babby Maynard, right? So you were you listened some broadcasting when you were growing up, been into traditional sports, so there's some broadcasting there as
Yeah,
well.
yeah.
You
And
were in a
also,
band.
yes, I was in a band, and I was also like a fan of fighting. As I did boxing sort of casually, well, just to go the sport thing. And Michael Buffer, who's someone that people might know as the Let's Get Ready to Rumble guy, was like someone that I thought just sounded so nice, and I wanted to like when I talk about like regular genuine Maynard to broadcast Maynard, I try and put on a little bit Michael Buffer. That was the name I was looking for. I forgot his name, but yeah. He just sort of has that lovely curve to his voice, and has that sort of roll up into the from low to high. But anyway,
Mm-hmm.
yes, continue. You were talking
Yeah,
about
you. I
me.
was talking about you.
Oh my
Yeah, I was
god,
talking about. Yeah, isn't that weird? It's like I'm on a call with you,
I
and it's
know.
about you. It's so
Jesus,
weird. You seem to have this natural affinity towards a little bit of the showmanship aspect of things, where many people probably grew up, obviously not in bands, but also like afraid of public speaking and all that.
hmm
Eventually, down the line here, and you actually started your StarCraft 2 career a little bit older than many other people who started their esports careers. But eventually down the line, you got an offer to cast a StarCraft 2 job. Now, can you actually tell me what that was? Because I'm not sure what your first offer was.
my first offer. Well, you mean like my
Yeah.
first international broadcast,
The first time you were
or
paid.
the first time I was paid? Okay, the first time I was ever paid for an event, and I was casting unpaid from 20. I want to say I started in 2011. So not right on 2010. I think I started casting in 2011 online, then eventually was an offline gig in 2012 at ACL, so the Australian Cyber League. But they were all unpaid. In fact, I paid my own hotels and flights to go.
Oh, okay.
All of them were unpaid, every single one. And my first paid gig was IEM Shanghai 2013. So right in the middle of the biggest heat wave that China had had in 100 years. I went to China. It was my first time going internationally by myself since I was a teenager. So I was in my mid 20s. I don't remember. But anyway, I was 20 odd years old and going on to Shanghai to, by myself to go and work and stay with, a bunch of international big names that I've been watching since the beginning of StarCraft 2. And it was a little, it was like, boy, I hope we get along because I'm stuck with these people for like a week. That was my
Mm-hmm.
initial thought, because I didn't know if I would get along with Todd, and I didn't know if I'd get along with Kalaris. I didn't know if I'd get along with Apollo. Those guys, we'd spoken a little bit online, but very little. And I was going to be rooming with one of them. I didn't know which one. And I was a little bit sort of like, God, I hope that we get along. That's all I initially was worried about. I wasn't worried about the gig. I wasn't worried about the show. I wasn't worried about the temperature. I wasn't worried about China and getting lost, because I knew a little bit of Chinese, studied Chinese in high school, so I could get around. Like I could get a cab, I could get food. I was more worried about the other guys and getting along with them. But so that was June or July 2013. So right in the middle of summer in China. It was really brutal. It's like
Ouch.
let's see, 45. So more like 110 degrees and humid as fuck. Can I swear on this podcast? Sorry. But
Yeah.
the
Okay.
but it was like anytime you got wet, you will never dry. You would just stay wet. That's it. Done. Like the humidity was insane. That was actually an event that I don't remember very well. I remember I made a lot of mistakes. The biggest mistake I made was I went to bars every night with everybody, and at the bars there was very loud music, and I was shouting to talk to people,
Mm.
and also getting pretty drunk. Like not like blackout drunk, but pretty happy drunk. and pretty happy drunk while in a bar that's loud, talking to people, had my arm around them and just like, being, friendly and making friends, which thankfully we did. But I was blowing my voice out and I didn't realize it until the next day when it was like, I think it was like the last day of the broadcast, I'd actually done serious damage to my voice. And the last day that was the one and only time that I have had no voice while trying to cast because I've just blown it out too badly. And I tried to push through it. Like my voice had already been really damaged and I never had any damage like that. Like even being in a band, I never had my voice that damaged. And I was like, oh, maybe if I push through it. Like that whole morning, I tried not to speak. Red Eye gave me some throat lozenges and some painkillers and that sort of thing. And I tried to push through it. And Apollo was just like, giving me a note off stage as I was casting with Todd. And Apollo gave me like a note off stage and was just saying, "You are destroying your voice. Try to stop. Don't hype things up because you're destroying your voice and you cannot be heard." But the community, strangely enough, was very cool about it. Like they were like, "Wow, this guy fucking loves StarCraft. He's going insane." He is very clearly hurting himself, but he's still going. It's the round of 4 and he's still going ham.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the event where I finally started to get messages from some of the people that a big part of the scene, like In Control and Cats and Rhett and a bunch of the pro gamers that hadn't said word one to me, even though I'd cast tournaments with them in it. They were jumping into my Twitter and saying, "Dude, that was so good," or "You really love StarCraft," or "Wow, that was great. Where were you when Code was like had shit casters? We would have rather you be there," or something like that. It was one of those weird backhanded compliments. And I just like, I took it very like I thought it was great. I went from like, I don't know, I think I had like 200 followers at the time to like 1,000, and I thought that was a big deal on Twitter. And I was like, yeah, I'm like, wow, like they really like me. But that's how it always starts, Everyone loves you right at the beginning.
Yeah, but I think that you're one of the casters that's been mostly loved by the community. Do you remember a time where you were actually hated?
That is true. I've definitely had hate, but it's not like a thread that says "fuck this guy, fire him for this tournament," which has definitely happened before. Not to me, but to other people.
Yes, it has.
Yes. So that was my first broadcast, and thankfully it ended up going well, and it was the first step on a long stair ride.
Well, you talked about this as a problem, and it certainly ended up being a problem that you blew out your voice. But
Yeah.
when it comes to actually building that camaraderie with the other casters, like it's understandable that that was the one thing you were worried about. I remember when I first did Nation Wars, that was what I was worried about, being on the big boy stage, big girl stage, and then these guys I actually never cast with before, who also just were people that I was watching for 6+ years, was quite intimidating. But they're professionals, first of all, so I didn't even have to go out drinking with them to feel comfortable casting with them. But then it also was one of those things that's definitely grown over time. But do you actually put a conscious effort, or did you ever, I guess in the past, to making sure to reach out to some of these commentators and make a bond?
It's kind of something that I didn't want to force. I wanted it to happen like naturally over time, like just to be friendly with them in person. I didn't speak to them before the event, if that's what you mean. It was just more like I just met them in person, and if they want to go to lunch, we'll go to lunch. If they want to go to dinner, we'll go to dinner. If I can think of something cool to talk about, I'll ask them questions as well. Like they'd had very illustrious esports careers already, and I'd barely begun. It was my first ever international event, so they had so many stories to share. They had so many pro gamers to talk about, and I just basically sat there and let them talk to me for the most part, to share stories with me. And I'd just be like, "Oh, that's interesting," and but not just nodding my head and going, "Oh, yeah, oh, that's great. Tell me more." Like I'm at a date, but more like, I actually am interested in all these stories, and I actually do want to learn all these things because it's going to be, helpful for not only the broadcast but just for future events if I get another event. Because like honestly at I am Shanghai, I had knowledge of the Korean scene, and I had knowledge of the North American scene, but I had almost zero knowledge of the European scene. And the European scene, even back then, was strong. So I relied very heavily on Apollo and Kalaris, who are the full-time ESL in-house commentators from the European scene, to give me the information to top up knowledge of that. I remember QXC at I Am Shanghai actually kind of bashed me a bit verbally for not knowing anything about the European commentator, for not knowing anything about the European players. He's like, "You're a commentator, man. You got to know this stuff." And he's not like joking. Like his QXC
Yeah,
was
he's serious.
he was a special, a very chill guy later on, but back then maybe less so. And yeah, so no, I mean, I thought, he's absolutely right. I should know these things. So yeah, it's not something that I like consciously made an effort. I didn't consciously go, "Oh, I'm going to try my best to be a friend to these people." I'm just like, I'm going to let it happen. If they like me, they like me. If they don't like me, they don't like me. At least I've had this experience. I was more than prepared for that to be my one and only event, because I didn't know if anyone would like me, and I always try not to think about what I can't control. What could go wrong that is out of my control. I always try to worry about things I have control over, like the quality of my cast is something I can control, and our conversations is something that I can control. But whether or not they like me or whether or not the community likes me really isn't up to me. But yeah, the community has been very very nice to me. Still to this day, they've been very nice. Like I don't really get too much hate anymore.
Well, I guess to kind of give you an example as to what I meant, like, it makes sense that you don't force friendships. That's that actually I'd say is a fault of some people who are trying to build relationships in esports. Like, the best thing you can ever do in any business is make connections, and that's absolutely true. But to fake connections or to use it for only connections, right? That's bad. But more so, I was thinking, like, when I first did mine, I actually made it a point to go out and drink. The urge to, especially if you're identified as an analyst caster, which maybe you have different thoughts, but to just study the night before, right, or every night, and come in with the cold hard facts is an urge. I think that most people have to be the smart person to prove their knowledge, because StarCraft 2, very very knowledge heavy. Is where you're going to get the respect from the hardcore audience, but it actually is so much more about the broadcast going smoothly. Did you ever feel a pressure to choose between the two, or
Absolutely
have you
no.
just always found a balance?
I have always just cared more about the entertainment of the broadcast and the smoothness of the broadcast, like having a relationship with who I'm commentating with and making it a good, like, I would rather a broadcast be fun and funny, like entertaining and funny, than super informative. Like, and I've always been that kind of person where I'm like I was very, very aware of the fact that, especially back then, like right now it's a lot better, but back then I had very little game knowledge, and I only knew some Terran stuff and some Zerg stuff. I knew almost nothing about Protoss, which is, still kind of my problem right now, but but I'm getting better at it. And at that time I was like, okay, my strengths are, I have, a lot of energy. I can be funny sometimes if the moment strikes. I can come up with I can be witty from time to time. Sometimes I am comfortable with who I'm with. I'm comfortable with what I'm doing. I'm not afraid of the camera. I like to work with the camera and sort of make it, fun for, like, whenever, like, even to this day, when the camera swings past me at I Am Katowice and I see it, I'll wink at it or something like that, or I'll smile at it and be aware, like very aware of the camera and very aware of the fact that I'm on camera and talking with someone. And I try and make that just like a fun thing for the viewer and also for me and for who I'm talking with. I always prioritize that over everything, But I think that if you in StarCraft 2, I definitely agree that the analyst is very highly regarded by the scene versus like a play-by-play commentator. Like, there's not too many successful or super universally loved play-by-play commentators in any esport. I think play-by-play commentators, I feel like, a very, what's the word?
I think they're underappreciated.
Well, I mean, potentially. I didn't even know if they're underappreciated in other esports. I think in our esport they've been appreciated. At least the ones that are here. I think they're underrepresented in StarCraft 2. There's me and there's Ravi, and I think that's it. Grant, maybe.
Tasteless, yeah.
Tasteless, of course. But that's 4, and then there's you, there's Roddy, there's Todd, there's Jeff back in the day. There's everyone else that I can think of is generally an analyst. Even Wardy, who really can play by play. Which Nate, yeah, okay, yeah, Nate's, when there's not battle cruisers, Nate's definitely play by play. A slight jab to Nathanius. Touche. Sorry, I love Nate, but anyway, I put the play-by-play badge on early, and I'm like, this is who I am. This is my identity as a commentator. I'm going to be the fun guy. I'm going to be the entertaining, high-energy guy. I think that you're right. As an analyst, you are under a lot of pressure to be correct and to also bring up cool tidbits, because people like to watch analysts and have the analysts teach them something. Like, even though even remind them of something. Like, I think it's always a cool moment when the analyst is like, well, this series is relevant because I remember blah 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 blah, and that's relevant to X series. And then the crowd's like, huh, wow, what a big brain on her. She knows what she's talking about. She is very studied and learned in the StarCraft 2isms. And same deal when you're in game, when it's like, it's something that as a viewer, they'll say something that you kind of know, but you weren't thinking of. The analyst is the one that's thinking of it. They're like, this is a big moment here coming into this potential, there's a fight that's going to happen, and there's a big advantage for this player because of this. And the viewer's like, oh, back in the mind, I did know that, because, usually a viewer kind of has an idea of the game. Or even better, there's someone that doesn't know that, and the analyst is teaching them while, making it and building it up into a bigger deal, which is, something that analysts have to do, I feel, in StarCraft more than most esports, because it's such a, I guess, like a complicated game for people from the outside looking in, if you don't know what you're looking at. So many moving pieces. It's similar to Dota. Like, you watch Dota, and if you don't know what you're looking at, it is a very hard game to watch, I feel.
Well, for StarCraft, I think there's a big problem with it doesn't seem important, right? I think people can kind of understand that when someone loses a unit, like, oh, that's bad. And maybe they don't understand what it means to lose a Marine versus a Raven, but they understand it. Or when a big battle happens. But, thinking to some matchups that nothing happens for 10 minutes, and then you have to try and make a good story out of that, because you have to be like, well, look at, okay, so nothing happened, guys, because this guy knew that guy would do this thing, so he knew that would happen, so then he didn't do the thing, he actually did this thing. Like, you get a little bit, this, that, or the other. But I think that's what makes StarCraft 2 a difficult game to understand, and like highlights the analyst side of things. But yeah, I don't mean to just distract from your point, but yeah, it can be a hard game to understand. So I'm agreeing with you.
Yeah, but I'm also agreeing with you. Haha, you didn't expect that, did you? But I'm agreeing with you in the sense that it's maybe a little bit easier of the more, like, it has a stigma of being a really complicated game, but I feel like it is relatively straightforward. Like, it's not as straightforward as someone clicking on a head and that person gets shot and then they're dead. Like in Counter-Strike, for instance, you could be anyone. You could be my grandma, watch Counter-Strike, and when someone gets shot, you're like, oh, that's good for the guy that shot that guy, not for the guy that's dead. Yep.
Yeah.
I'm picking up what this game's putting down. I'm eating what it's cooking. Whereas in StarCraft 2, a fight could go well for a player and you'll kill that army. And as a viewer, you'll be like, that's good for the blue player. They just want to fight because their blue units are still alive and the red units are dead. And yes, viewer, you are correct. But sometimes, just sometimes, there's a whole bunch of other pieces of the puzzle, like a whole lot of cogs in the machine that sometimes mean maybe that fight didn't matter. And that's something that the analyst has to, tell the viewer about. And that's something special about StarCraft, but yeah.
So what do you think of your role as a play-by-play caster then? When you go into a cast and you self-identify very strongly as a play-by-play caster, what are you going into the cast with, idea-wise? What are your goals when you go into it?
I very rarely have a plan. I so just dispelling the mystery here. I'm pulling back. Pay no attention to the man behind the curtain. But no, like I actually very rarely have a plan. It's more of, I'm not going to pretend that the series is amazing if it's shit. Like there were a bunch of bad series at I Am Katowice, and it was very, very hard as a play-by-play commentator to make that series entertaining because the game was just not that great. Specifically the series that I had. Like a lot of people had some good series, but I remember I Am Katowice, I remember talking to you about it. It's like I had some kind of curse around me. I had some kind of whammy thrown on me by a witch doctor somewhere. I just couldn't get a good series to save my life. Every series I cast was just a destined to be a terrible 2-0. But I always go in with just the idea of giving because I'm usually paired with an analyst. Very, very rarely I'm paired with another play-by-play commentator. So like with Robbie or Tasteless, is usually the other two that I get paired with that are play-by-play guys. And I try and make sure that I give them enough space. I never want to be talking over anyone because that's really like nails on a chalkboard to me. My priority one is don't talk over that person, give them space. and try and make it a natural flow. Like if something's happening, let them keep talking about it. But when a fight happens, generally it's an unspoken thing that people understand for the analyst to start stepping out of what they're in the middle of talking about to give some room for the play-by-play commentator to jump in and just make the battle entertaining. So I try to explain the battle like you can't see it. You know what I mean? Like if you're listening to it on the radio or something, like those radio commentators are talking about, I'm talking about everything that's happening in that battle that I can see it, and I'm trying to look at the whole battle and talk about the whole battle at once, not just one thing in particular, but trying to talk about everything that's happening in that battle at the time, or trying to talk about a big moment and build it up as a big moment. So if something is coming and I have pre-warning that something is about to happen, to make sure that I am building it up so that someone is on the edge of their seat and they're getting closer and closer to the edge of their seat while they're watching this happen is the whole idea, to keep the energy up. If it's a big energy series, big moment, and also maybe even more so, I try to make sure that if there is a series that has a story behind it or a rivalry, to really play on that, to play on what the series means and the history of that moment. Like if there is a history, if there is a rivalry, to really play it up, because that is just something as a viewer that I know I want to hear. And I think that's pretty consistent for most fans of every esport. If it's a big moment between two teams or two players that, they always are back and forth. They're always very close in score, or maybe they hate each other or something like that. There's a beef or something, which is very rare in StarCraft especially, but, play up that. But yeah, so that's generally the only plan I have. I obviously do. I'm not coming in here saying I don't prep at all. I prep, and just letting you guys, all you listeners of the podcast right now, know I actually do work. I make sure that I prep a little bit before these tournaments to make sure that I know what I'm talking about for the most part. But yeah, I just have a few like rules in my brain, which is like, don't talk over the other person. Yeah. Anyway, go.
No, go. If you're gonna say, please give us your rules.
My rules. Okay. So the rules are: don't talk over the other person. Talk about the story, like bring up the story when relevant, and try not to go from 0 to 100, because it happens sometimes when I get surprised by something. Like something will show up in the observers, maybe like instantly arise when something happens, and I'm like processing it within milliseconds. I'll go from 0 to 100, but that's something that I feel can be really jarring, to try and build slowly. And I know that in this podcast, I'm doing it a lot. I'm saying ums and ahs, but to always take a second to be silent rather than go or ah. Because one thing as a viewer, I fucking hate it. And some casters that I love that I'm friends with as well, I hate it when I hear it is nails on a chalkboard for me. I can't stand it. And when I do it, I hate myself when I do it. When I see a broadcast and I'm doing it too much, or I'm stuttering or something like that, I just, as a play-by-play commentator, is my job to have a very smooth, confident, and eloquent speech pattern, to really smoothly go from one thing to another, and to make it really, really easy to listen to. So, to take something that I'm still struggling with to this day, is to take a second where silence is just better to have than to make a noise. Like, don't feel pressure to make a noise. You don't have to go and ah. If you can't say anything, don't say anything. Wait for what you need to say to come to you, and then say it. And also, it stops you from saying wrong things, which happens as well. I'm trying hard not to be wrong. Yeah. So those are the main rules.
Those are good rules.
I'm glad you agree.
I think it's really tough to be play-by-play caster. That's why I said they're underappreciated. Coming from an analyst role into like providing more play-by-play rules as I get paired up with different casters, like that is one thing I've learned that is very difficult to do. What you just described, basically, not only to paint a picture for someone who might not be watching, and also somewhat not understanding, but all with the hype and consistent storytelling as things live unfold in front of you, but also to do so as if I had pre-planned the script without any, shoot, okay, no, hold on here, actually that's happening.
Yeah.
Was exceptionally difficult, to the point where I knew it would be difficult, and my initial criticism of myself when I started doing this was that I actually would just be the most bland hype. I'd be hype with my voice, but my actual, content would be basically like, oh, this looks actually really interesting. Okay, let's keep watching. All right, so this is So that green person's winning. All right, so now, but it seems like the blue person's like, I would just get so vague with it. Do you have any idea, or you actually like know how you practiced being able to encapsulate a second, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, max maybe 30 seconds of a StarCraft 2 fight into something that is hype and somewhat well said?
Oh man, this is one of those things where like it's like trying to tell a player how to go to the highest league of StarCraft. It's like, well, you just have to be better. And you have to have enough practice. You have to have done thousands of I would say thousands. I've done thousands of casts at this point, just building it up over experience. Also, I think one of the things that helped me out a lot was just to reading a lot. I find that when I finish reading a book or when I've just read something, I have like a bunch of new words and phrases in my brain. And whenever I read something in a book or a phrase in a book that I'm like, oh, this would be applicable in a cast, I kind of file it away. Because having some big, bold, wonderful sounding phrases would and words, even just like the power of individual like chosen words. I have a bunch of ones that I use every now and then to try and paint a picture for what someone's watching. Like I said, I want it to be like like someone isn't seeing what's on the screen right now. Obviously, seeing it on screen, you give it the full experience. But if you're listening to it, I can say things like, oh, so-and-so has broken the back of the defense of this player. Like, it just really hammers home the fact that this has been a big moment and that the defense has been broken. And like, I can't just say, oh, they've cut through the tanks and the Marines and they're on the third. It's like, like using analogies like that really paints a better picture, like a bigger picture, or using huge words like something's been crushed, dominated. I stopped saying decimated because I learned that just means it's been, factored by 10.
Tenth.
Yeah, it's been 10th. So I stopped using that word, but I love that word back in the day. But just like things like that, having a Batman utility belt of casterisms to whip out when relevant. That's just something that I have like in broadcasts. Like I like using big words and big phrases and trying to paint a picture with those words more so than actually saying this tank's killed this tank and this Marine's killed that Marine and this Vedevac's dead and blah, 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 and just reading out things like a list, which you do a little bit, but just trying to paint the battle as like a big pretty French oil painting. I don't know why I went with that, but I just did it. I just did it now, like in this conversation. I'm trying to make an analogy that makes it more, embellishes it, makes it a bigger thing than it is. I don't know. It's hard to explain.
It is very hard. Casting is also very vague when we explain how we got better because there is no school. There was no like, I went to
definitely not
hype school. I went to hype class and I did really well. There's none of that. But one of the things that I talked about with Darren, I knew it was going to happen. I lost my train of thought. First time. I was talking with Fear Dragon about something along the same conversation. So we'll just edit that part out. How bringing more experiences into your life actually makes you a better commentator. Now, we were talking about it in more of the charismatic role because we feel like there are just these big dogs in StarCraft 2 especially that have been around for a long time that have like larger than life personalities. But for you, it sounds like you actually use it in a more like technical sense. Like we were experiencing new things and hearing new phrases and ways to explain things and then putting it into your commentary. So would you say that just in general, just being a interesting person who has hobbies outside of just StarCraft has actually made you a better commentator?
I would say yes. I mean, if I hadn't been the outgoing, crazy haired person, like even as a kid, I would do crazy things to my hair, so I already stand out physically. I was always like an outgoing guy that was never afraid of crowds. In a band for a long time, so I know how to work up a crowd. Maybe the crowd's a little bit sleepy and they're like sitting there going, they're standing around and they're watching the band, but they've forgotten that they're there to see live music. And every now and then you just remind them like, hey guys, make some noise. And then they're like, oh yeah, this is really hype. And then they start getting into it, and that's like all these life experiences that I bowl into relevant to play-by-play things that help a commentator out in esports. And the phrases and that sort of thing, the big words. I feel like no one is better at painting a picture with words than a writer is, like a really good author, because that's literally what they're doing. They're painting a picture in your brain with text, and that's where all of not all of, but most of the great phrases that I've come up with have come from. But yeah, I mean, just having more life experiences, having more things to draw analogies with, having skills from other things that are relevant to casting, absolutely help for sure. And just the ability to build, even just off camera, the ability to be a decent enough person to hang out with, to make the other people want to work with you, to have people go, like sometimes people aren't the best, but they get hired because they're friends with so and so, you know, to start off with, like not, obviously if you suck, you won't stick around, but to get your foot in the door, you should be friendly and memorable, and it's something that's like a skill that I picked up over, like, I don't know, just years of going out a lot and going to see live music a lot and just having a lot, like meeting a lot of strangers. Like every weekend back in the day, I would meet strangers and hang out with them and just be friendly and that sort of thing. And that's something that's also very helpful. Like if I was a dick, then Apollo would have been my last IM. Or Artosis wouldn't have said that I was a good commentator or a nice guy like he did when he met me in like 2012. Back then, he would just been like, oh, that weird quiet jerk that just showed up and then just went into a corner by himself to do the job. But yeah, so those things are absolutely relevant. And yeah, there's a reason why I feel most commentators are a certain, like have a certain, like a similar skill set to each other, like even like across all esports and even real sports. Like a lot of commentators have very similar skill sets, I think.
Kind of touching on that thing you last said, do you think that there is a lot of just knowing the right person rather than necessarily being one of the best that goes
Mm.
into esports broadcasting, we'll say? StarCraft 2 has kind of been reduced in size the last 4-ish years.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that is
Yeah.
a similar, like there could be similar problems. So I'm just kind of opening it up to the floor of general esports though.
Some good old fashioned homegrown nepotism. Mm-mm-mm.
Yeah, do you think that is a problem?
I wouldn't say that it's a problem in our game, because I think that a lot of the people that are very good at what they do are given like maybe less opportunities than they would like. But I think that a lot of the people like you and myself, like I think that, no bullshit. And I'm trying not to toot my own horn here because I hate doing that. But I do think that you and I are two of the best at what we do. As a result, we are offered international gigs. And I think that if someone is really, really good and they're not getting their moment to shine, we would know, because we would be hearing over time the community blow up over this person. We haven't had that in StarCraft 2. So I think that the quote unquote old boys club is there because they are the ones that are just the best.
Yeah.
And that's specifically in our game. There have been new faces. You are a relatively new face, but even then, you've been around for years. Maybe Wardy would be like the newest guy to international broadcast, but even then, he was only just very shortly after you. I think, like 2018, I think was his first international one back in like January or something like that.
I think he did a Chinese IEM before I did
Oh,
Montreal.
right. No, you're right. Yes, he was there at Shanghai with me. Wow, nice
Oh,
memory,
there you go.
man. Yeah, 2017.
Yeah.
But yep. So I think in our game, I think the best of the best that we have of actually getting those opportunities, and I don't think that. I think that you and Wardy and even myself to a lesser degree, because I had that international broadcast experience like 4 years earlier or whatever. I think we all started with nothing and got to where we are based off the sweat of our brow. And also, I do think that building relationships is important, but I also think that building relationships is a skill set. When we started not knowing anyone in StarCraft 2, and here we are knowing everyone. It happened very naturally over time. We didn't jump into StarCraft 2 already with tons of contacts and friends and relationships in esports. I had 0 people in esports that I was friends with when I started commentating. 0.
Mm-hmm.
Like everyone from my Quake days was gone or in CS, and I was out of touch, and they were not going to help me in StarCraft. So, and I think same deal for you. You started off as what were you, like a you were similar to me, where you played MMOs and you liked Blizzard games, and you started StarCraft because people like told you that it was cool or something like that, or you liked
Yeah, I
RTSs anyway.
played the StarCraft N64 version. So StarCraft
Right.
2 came out. My brother said I should buy it. Yeah, cast a clan war. Didn't know anyone. As far as knowing someone who became, esports as well later on, Fear Dragon and I basically came up at the same exact time, if that counts. But
Yeah.
yeah, I was I just also I completely new to it. But it's actually kind of a good segue. Like, I think And let's try not to think of it as a personal opinion thing, but rather something that we kind of look at as fact.
Hmm.
But the idea of there being tiers of commentators in StarCraft 2. Let's go back to just StarCraft 2.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Yeah, so I would say, like, S tier are the guys that get hired all the time, who you expect to see, and if they're not there, it's because they're busy or it's just a big surprise.
Hmm.
So Roddy being pretty much S tier.
Yeah, I mean,
And
he's S plus if that exists.
yeah, exactly.
I think he actually has to. He's one of the very rare cases of people that just turns down events because he's got too many. Like he's just like,
Yeah,
yeah. But anyway, yeah.
it's insane. But I mean, even including Todd as well as, well, In Control was one of them, and then there's definitely one person I'm missing. I guess Kalaris before he kind of transferred over to a host role. Nate as well before he transferred over to a host role. Anyways, like the guys that we always expect to see, that's kind of the remnants, quote unquote, of what we would consider maybe the old boys club. And then
Mhm.
there's the A tier casters, who I think are still relatively new, but we are talking, you know, we're new to the earth because we're humans type new.
Yeah, yeah.
There's you and Pig, as I think the only people I can think of in that category. And then there's kind of the B tier. I wish we were B tier.
Hmm.
The B tiers, which would be me, Wardy, Fear Dragon, and anyone else basically that pops up, right? Also, Tastosis was an S tier, but yeah, that's a
Yeah.
whole different system over there. But anyways, I wanted to explain it before I asked the question because I think it would be confusing to people who don't know what I'm talking about. But what do you think really pushes people into these tiers and pushes
Hmm.
them into the next tier? Is it just the length of time that they've been doing StarCraft? Is it the amount of events that they've done in StarCraft? Or is it
Huh.
actually just how damn good they are?
Oh man, my instant gut reaction, and I'm going to try and not answer this way, but my instant gut reaction was to be a real beta cuck and just say all of those things. But I'm going to try and get something a little bit spicier for you. So I think, and this is just based off of a feeling with the community, but I think that actually time doesn't matter as much as people think it does. I think that if you are really good at what you do and you can build up a lot of hype around yourself really quickly, and this is a theory, by the way, because I haven't seen this happen really. I think that if you are really good at what you do and you put up a really good product, that you'll make it so that like you are unignorable. I don't know if that's a word. You can let's just say that you can't be ignored if you're big enough and because you're building up enough of a cult following. Like like, I mean, Wardy, for instance, is someone who everyone in StarCraft's going to know. Maybe everyone listening to this outside of StarCraft, which isn't probably going to be many, but you know, in case this podcast is worldwide phenomena at this point, and all you people from other esports and outside of esports are tuning into the second episode of the ZombieGrub Casting Calls podcast. In StarCraft 2, Wardy has really had a lot of hype and momentum built up around him, and I think that was a lot of the reason why he got hired for IM Katowice. He wasn't at any international events for almost 2 years. In fact, no, 2 years. Yes. Yeah,
Right.
2 years. And a lot of that had to do with because the people that were making the events felt like maybe he was not the right kind of commentator for an offline event. And I think that going into IM Katowice, Wardy had so much hype built around him because he'd been working not only so hard. I mean, obviously Wardy's been around forever, but kind of not being able to break through that tier that you're talking about. To like, I would say that Wardy went from like if C existed, like the online broadcaster only, if that was like a C thing, then he broke into B or whatever you classify as B, just off of work ethic, working on his craft. So not only that, but also becoming a much better commentator. And just having a cool product and putting a lot of tournaments on and providing content. Like he was unignorable. Like no one in StarCraft 2 doesn't know Wardy now that follows the scene. And that's something that he did on his own without any help really. And I think when IM Katowice came around, they were all set for him to be B stream, as usual, Wardy on the B stream. And they were like, well, there's a very, very special opportunity where we can have him offline. And I think that this guy's been crushing it and it's about time to bring him onto an offline event. And I think that he broke into B or whatever you want to call it, just off of that purely. And I feel like that was a really quick turnaround as well. Like he really exploded off the last I want to say 4 months. 5 months. Not that much, not that long, especially in the grand scheme of things. But again, this is a theory, and I know that all the people that have been around that are in the Old Boys Club have been just around for a really long time and have an insane history with the game. Because the other thing is that StarCraft's 20 years old, the franchise is, and a lot of the Old Boys are well, actually not really anymore, but Tasteless Narcosis at least were Brood War Old Boys Club. You know, Jeff was as well. But Roddy and Todd are more of a Warcraft 3 Old Boys Club that went into StarCraft. Not really a Brood War. Not really Brood War guys, but still, like, they've been around for 15 years in esports. They've been full-time even in esports since they were kids. They've never had a not esports job.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas you and I... Actually, have you? Have you had a non-esports job?
I have, yeah.
You have? Okay, well, there you go. I've had like 10 jobs. So I didn't classify myself as an esports person at all until it snuck around on me. But yeah, this is so my theory is, just to clarify for everyone, that I think that if you are if you have that special little something, if you have that mixture of work ethic and not only that, but also being really good at what you do, and also, you know, Wardy is known and also loved by tons of players. So if you're also, you know, building up those relationships, I think that time doesn't matter as much. I think that just I like to believe that if you're really good at what you do, you will be rewarded eventually, even if it takes a long fucking time, like with you and Wardy and Fear Dragon. Like, you guys that have been around for a long time that really, I feel like, deserved something a little bit earlier than you got it. But yeah, I think that's off the back of just hard work and being around and being hard to ignore.
Yeah. I mean, it's a very good word, even if it is made up. Unignorable.
Unignorable, yeah.
To use.
Yeah.
But no, it really makes a lot of sense. I think it's like, and another way to phrase it would be just like momentum and also a bit of the right time, you know? Because if
momentum's a big one.
Kind of basically didn't happen for Wardy. He's actually still just like, yeah, I feel really good for my casting, and everyone's like, yeah, but you know.
Yeah, exactly. No, you're right. Like, imagine if you know, Mr. Bitter did go and that spot wasn't open.
Yeah.
You know, then he'd, you know, Wardy would be like, well, I'm still the online guy. But luckily for him,
especially
it did.
now with everything happening.
Yeah, exactly. Especially with the fact that there are no lands to go to. But
yeah.
No, you're spot on with that as well. I agree.
Well, okay, so that kind of covers like how to get into the like offline main casting world. It's still a very important topic that I think a lot of people are going to be interested in.
Mm-hmm.
But to maybe move on to even like a bit of a tougher topic, even.
Oh God.
There has been, perhaps, I mean, I'm not going to say it's even bad necessarily. There's just been conversation about like what brings people to the top must needs, gotta have always. One of the best examples of this is Tastosis not going to Katowice, and a question mark as to what they're doing next year, as well as the fact that they were always given the finals for whatever event they went to. Talking about S tier casters and bringing them back into the fold because they are the perfect example. Do you ever think that there's going to be a move from the A tier casters to S tier or S to Tastosis? Because we got to kind of put them in their own tier. If Roddy's S plus, I don't know what Tastosis is.
Yeah, I mean, maybe we'll keep Roddy at S and Tastosis are S plus because they'd just be S plus plus. But no, you're right. Like they you know, a lot of people I think can already sort of tell from the outside looking in without knowing any details that they are on their own. You know, not only are they also very geographically removed from the rest of us, they're the only pair in Korea. They're also one of the very few pairs in StarCraft 2 at the moment. You know, we don't really have pairs in the Western scene for StarCraft 2. We're all interchangeable. There's no like casting Archon, but it's just been them as a brand. And this is something that's actually in Counter-Strike as well, is that they have pairings, which I think actually is good. Like it makes you stand out more to a viewer. I feel like you know what you're going to get, kind of thing, if you have a pairing of two people that are always with each other, rather than one or two people that you know, or one person that'll be interchanged with 7 other people. You know.
Yeah.
But I think that Tastosis, they are not really. It's not a tier that I think can be broken into right now in the current climate of StarCraft 2, because I think a lot of their success got locked. Like a lot of their what do you want to call it? I'm trying not to go too deep here either, is a lot of what they built happened very early in StarCraft 2. That's a better way of saying it. A lot of what they built happened very early in StarCraft 2 when it was the biggest esport in the world, and when Blizzard had a lot more say over what happened in StarCraft 2. And right now, I feel like Blizzard, they're the owner of the game, they created the game. But right now, as far as esports concerned, I feel like they have a say, but they don't have enough to force a casting pair to be at everything. I don't think they can do that anymore. So the ability, like, you can't really do that unless you have a big company that for some reason has a like a big financial stake in you. I feel like if say we like for instance, let's pretend that Red Bull hire commentators. Maybe they do. I don't even know if they do. Do they do that? I don't know.
Yeah, well, freelance, not like a pro league or anything like that.
Okay, so maybe there's like a giant brand that wants their commentator at everything, and maybe that brand also sponsors that tournament or something like that. Like, we want our Red Bull guy there, or whatever, or our Monster guy. Like, when Jeff was on EG, it was Monster cans everywhere. He was always promoting Monster, and it was kind of like his shtick as well. But I feel like without something like that, it's just not possible at the moment in the current climate of StarCraft 2 to be that S++ or whatever we decided it was. These tiers are messing me up, man. I can't remember which one's which, but whatever. To break into that irreplaceable must be at everything, and everyone's screaming at whatever tournament provided to have you there. I don't think that's something that we can achieve. I think the best that we can achieve is to probably try and be at Roddy tier, which is something that I think is possible to be at Roddy tier.
And what is that? Respectfully supposed to be, but you're not going to cry if they're
where the tier where every tournament has you at the top of their list to be there. You know what I mean?
Okay.
So every single, for StarCraft 2, for people that aren't in StarCraft 2, just in case, the many dozens of you out there that are not StarCraft 2. But so DreamHack and ESL, so IEM, are the two big internationals, production companies that are putting on tournaments to StarCraft 2 that have those big lands. And these ones are really coveted for commentators because not only is it a fantastic experience, it's also a pretty good payday. So to be at the top of the list for every single one of those events for StarCraft 2, I think is what I would classify as that tier. Whatever we thought that was. S, A, I don't know.
Original S.
The original S. Original
There's
S.
new S and original S.
There's new S, original S. That's right.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's something people can work towards, yeah.
For sure.
Few people.
I think it's possible, to like to go back to being, what was the word I created? Unignorable?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's definitely possible. To have a lot of momentum on your personal stream, or to provide something content-wise that just people fucking love, like to have a almost viral explosion of fan base growth, which I think is still possible in StarCraft 2. A lot of people don't think that's possible. I think it is possible. I just think it hasn't been done for a long time. And something that not only gets everyone that's in the game excited, but maybe bringing in people from outside the game as well, which is also a big incentive for, I think, tournaments to bring someone on, because they're just everyone loves them. They have maybe 2 haters, but everyone else loves them.
Wait, who you mean? What do you mean? Like people outside of StarCraft, or people that casters?
people that come into StarCraft because of this person, like a Day9 back in the day,
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. So I think that having another Day9 is actually very possible. It's just that no one's done it yet. No one's tried to do it. I think it actually is quite possible. It's just that people have sort of let it be, or they've stopped trying to have that, or they don't think it's necessary anymore. I think it's something that could happen. I think that, and to this day, and we're still joking about it. Like, it's not super serious, but I feel like if Day9 wanted to cast a StarCraft event right now, he would get it.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I agree.
Yeah, he would get it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's just because he's built up this massive brand of just a huge fan base. And even though he hasn't been involved in StarCraft for years, people would just be like, hell yeah, he's back. There'll be a few people that would be like, but most people would be very, very happy. They'd be very excited to see an old name come back. And I think that possibility is there for us to have some kind of viral fan base explosion and suddenly be You know, this person is going to be asked to be at everything. They might say no, but it'll be up to them and not up to the tournament. You know, the tournament will be like, we're going to ask you, and you will either accept or deny.
Yeah.
Mhm.
I mean, a push towards that's got to be very tough.
Oh God, yes, Jesus,
Like,
yeah.
have you? I would say that you are probably the closest to being that other person. Back in the day, they used to have 3 people always go to every event, and it was very chosen.
Yep.
Roddy, Todd, and In Control. But it's kind of changed, except for Roddy. Roddy goes
Yeah,
away.
yeah. Because he's not really like the other people that I think were in that 3 kind of do other things. Like even Jeff back in the day was kind of had his fingers in a few pies, whereas Roddy is just like pure unadulterated StarCraft and nothing but StarCraft. He lives and breathes it, like it's all he does, sort of thing. So I think the fan base really appreciates that too. Specifically, the StarCraft fan base really likes it when someone only does StarCraft.
Yeah,
Strangely enough.
true. But I would say that you're pretty close to being up there, basically, and not just because I really like you, but because that you are one of the few play-by-play casters. If Tasteless is geographically far away and other issues, or whatever, let's take him out of the equation.
Mhm.
Fear Dragon is kind of part-time now as well, so let's temporarily take him out of the equation. You're kind of what's left for play-by-play, and you are
Yeah,
super approved by basically everyone. Like, do you ever think about what you can do to push yourself to that role?
I agree. First of all, I think that again, don't want to toot my own horn, but I can't think of anyone that could replace me right now because every tournament kind of wants every tournament wants a play-by-play guy, but you're right. Like, there's not a huge selection. There's Grant, of course, who's quite good at what he does, but I wouldn't say that he's like on every single list at the moment. He hasn't worked with everyone yet, whereas I kind of have already. I don't think anyone that runs StarCraft events hasn't already worked with me right now. And I'm
Mhm.
like a safe bet kind of thing, and people like safe bets, which is kind of a shame, honestly. Yeah, and to break into that, I would say is to when you asked to break in. Are you talking about me getting to the next level, or to someone to come to to my level, or
The former.
the
You
former?
getting to Roddy level.
I think it's kind of naturally happening anyway because of the climate of the game at the moment, where, like you said, there's not really anyone that, well, like I said as well, I don't think anyone does what I do to the level that I do it at the moment in StarCraft 2 as far as play by play goes, and I think that every tournament kind of needs me, so I'm like a default choice. And also I've got a good relationship with the decision makers at ESL, so there's that whole not just being good at what you do, but also knowing, also, it's who you know as well. It's a mixture of two,
Yeah.
who you know and how well you can do it. I feel like I can do it well, and I know people. So I'd say pretty close. If not, I mean, we don't know what 2020 will look like. Maybe I did get a call for every dream hack. I don't know. No one's called me yet, but maybe it happens. Maybe it doesn't. Part of the reason also that it's tough for me to break in a Roddy tier. I feel like if I was in Europe, I would probably already be there. But the geographical thing, like you mentioned, Tasteless is really far away, and it's hard to grab him. I'm also very far away as an Australian. It's very expensive to hire me, not because my rate is insane, but my travel costs are like triple someone like, say, yeah, like a Ruddy. Like his travel costs are a third
Right.
of what I would cost. So economically, I don't make sense a lot of the time as well. It's like, he's good, but does he have a giant following? Not really. Is he good at what he does? Yes, he is. But we could still put together a good broadcast without him, and that's generally how it goes. Although, strangely enough, just as a side note, I don't remember a tournament that didn't have at least one Australian. Like, they usually have me or Pig.
Yes.
When was the last
That is
time
that.
Pig and I weren't like Pig or I or both of us went at something?
I can't think of one.
Exactly. Yeah, I'm trying to think of it too. So maybe the Australian thing wasn't a. Maybe the people are just trying to share the love. Maybe the flight doesn't matter as much. I don't know.
I'm not sure.
Yeah.
But like, kind of, well, you said like you would provide a lot to the broadcast, but maybe not enough to be like, we can't not have a good broadcast.
Mm.
In the current pool of StarCraft 2 casters that have done main events, and I did exclude some, like the Muslim popped up and someone's going to be like, you didn't mention him. And I'm going to be like, ah, there you go. I mentioned him.
I mean, there's
But
Rapid as
even like
well.
Rapid,
Yeah.
exactly. Like, do you think that is actually true, that you could pick anyone, let's say 5 people, because that was the standard for WCS, and actually always provide a good broadcast?
I think we've shown that the oh no, the tier system again. It's getting me, ZombieGrub. Oh god, what tier was it? I think the B tier. I think you grab most people from the B tier and we can put on a good show. Any 5 from the B tier, we put on a good show, I think.
Okay. So me, Wardy, Fear Dragon, you, and Pig.
Yeah. Fuck yeah, we could put on a great show. Are you kidding me? I'd tune into that. It sounds great.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean we're pretty well liked. There's very few like we don't have like a huge diversive sort of we don't really we're not nails on a chalkboard for too many people. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's nice.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
I think you select anyone out of the B tier pool and we can put on a show for sure.
The other question I had was, do you think that with the current state of things, that being a play-by-play caster is your best bet into getting an offline gig?
Yeah, you know what? I would say probably. That's. I mean, when I think about it for more than a split second, I think that maybe if you wanted to be a new commentator in StarCraft 2 and really turn people's heads, you would probably have to be a bit of a jack of all trades, like a someone that knows a fair bit. Like maybe they're a higher level player, but they also have good. They can put on a good show. They have good on camera presence. They have a really good, well spoken vibe about them. Like they're very charming. I think you need I think you need to have a little bit of. I think you can't just be a very charming, not knowledgeable play-by-play person anymore. In current climate, I think you'd have to know what you're talking about as well. Because I don't think the StarCraft fans that still are with us, which is most of them, thankfully. Like the StarCraft actually is insanely weird in a good way, in that its fan base has been very consistent. I think the people right now really enjoy a knowledgeable high level person. They really respect knowledgeable high level people. But they also want to be entertained. Like they don't like monotonous, boring people either. So yeah, I think you'd have to be that special nexus of charming, witty, friendly, and quick, but also knowledgeable. Yeah, that's my perfect commentator.
Yeah, of course, it's anyone's.
Yeah.
Do you think you have to be a certain level in StarCraft, which is always a hot topic?
Yeah, well, it's one that's very near and dear to my heart, because if there was a level cutoff for commentator, I would not be a commentator. I feel because a lot of people think that someone that's diamond, or when I started, I was gold. I think 2013. Yeah, like gold or platinum maybe. And I wasn't hated. I didn't have much game knowledge, but I wasn't super hated. People sometimes tease me about my rank, but it's generally elitist Europeans, and they're nobodies that don't do anything, and they just sit in Twitch chat and lol KXD. So, you know, I think that right now I think that you should be like I said, you should know what you're talking about, but I don't think like in game you have to be a certain rank. I think you do have to know what I think you have to have a fair bit of game knowledge, but like for instance, I know Wolf wasn't really playing the game much. Right now, Tasteless isn't playing the game much, but they still know what they're talking about for the most part, and they still put on a very good show. And that's because they have a lot of that, I don't know, X factor or whatever you want to call it, that special sauce. They have a good relationship with who they're talking to, with who they're with, and you know, honestly, like I know Tasteless is paired with Artosis all the time, but you could put him with anyone, and he would give you a good broadcast.
Yeah.
So, yeah, they have that special something, and that I think is important, and also to know what you're talking about, which is usually coming off the back of being a high level player, but I don't think is necessarily necessary.
That's the eloquent.
That's that eloquence, guys. That's my special sauce. That's why I'm getting all those gigs, cash dollar bills. No, it's yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Of course, I think that playing the game at a higher level lets things stick with you a bit faster, perhaps,
Mhm.
as you experience things closer to that pro. But we're never going to be close to pro, really. Even Roddy, who's like super, super good at the game, or the Muslim.
Well, think about
Well, the Muslim actually might be.
the main things you get from being a high level player is stuff that as a not high level player you can bring up anyway. Like having incredible mechanical skill at StarCraft 2 doesn't make you a better commentator. But
Right.
what you do have is knowledge of builds and looking at a situation in the game and going, okay, this is good for so and so because of XYZ. And that's usually what being a high level player will give you, which is something that I kind of already know without being a high level player, just from watching a lot and talking a lot about StarCraft. Yeah.
I think that it just depends on how much you really pay attention. My point was basically like, you can learn that you put one guy in gas and two guys in another for a factory expand just by
Mm-hmm.
watching a bunch of games, or you could actually play it and realize that it feels better than 2 and 2, right?
That
So
is actually
that was my
true.
point.
I actually agree with the fact that, I think that you should be a player. Like that's something
Right.
something that I should actually put in there. Like not a high level player, but you should play the game because I think that it does help you a lot as a commentator to know what something feels like, which I think is what you just mentioned is actually a really good point, and I can't believe I forgot that. But yeah, it's you need to know what it feels like to be in a certain situation in the game because then you can be more accurate with what you're saying and really paint the picture a little bit easier.
It's better to always draw from experience. There's always a little bit more oomph
Yeah, like you
to
like
it.
say there's a push coming and you've experienced that push on the other side of the fence and you're like, "Oh, okay, this is how it's held. Does this person have this to hold it?" You know,
Hmm.
something like that.
But I do think anyone can do it. It's just a matter of actually paying attention, because anyone can just do whatever and then not really learn. But if you really are interested, then you can learn without being, heck, even diamond. You could be gold. You could be bronze.
You
Go
could.
for it,
Yeah.
guys.
If you can really retain information, I actually do believe that. Like you could be a gold player for sure.
Hmm. So bring it back to a point you made much earlier, but I always find interesting because you actually kind of brought it in a positive light as well. Caster pairings. Talked about
Hmm.
Tastosis and the brand they were able to build at a time that is now, it's not really, you can't replicate the time of 2012, 2011, 2012 StarCraft anymore. But the idea of building your brand as a pairing, or the positive aspects of being a pairing, do you think that it would actually be something worthwhile for maybe not all of StarCraft to do, or not even the entire system, DreamHack or ESL to do? But do you think it'd be worthwhile trying for a singular tournament, like a DreamHack?
And just have a pair. I
Yeah, you
think
just you hire 6 commentators and they're all paired.
yep, so it's 3 pairs. Yeah, I think it'd be a cool experiment for sure. I think it'd be interesting to see what happens to the not only the viewership but also the the live reaction from fans when you have a certain pair on versus another pair and another pair and see like I would be interested to see that because it's kind of hard to keep up with pairings as a viewer when the pairing changes all the time when it's so interchangeable. You like
Hmm.
do the people like this pair? Sometimes some people will be like, Roddy and the Muslim's the best or something like that, and you'll see that occasionally in Twitch chat. But do you see any big difference? And I think that's something that will only you be able to notice if you see that pair over and over and over and over and over again in like a short period of time,
Hmm.
short-ish, over a few days. I think it'd be a really cool experiment. I think it'd be great. Building up a brand is extremely important when you're a freelance esports commentator or something like that. You're not with anyone. You're on your own. You are a free enterprise. You're a sole trader. It's really important to have a brand and to have people and make it easy for people to follow. Like if you're always changing your name or something like that, like it's people that want to be fans are going to find it harder to be a fan because they're trying to keep up with your crazy antics. They're just like, who was that again? Oh yeah, right. You don't ever want people to be in that situation. You want them to be like, oh yes, them. You know what I mean? Like, it's hard to explain, but I feel like a pairing sticks with people a bit more. Like the Tastosis casting Archon, it's been drilled into our brains since day one. Like people will say, yeah, it's into our brains because it's 10 years later. And I would say, yeah, but we already had it drilled into our brains in 2010. Let's be real. The Tastosis casting Archon was well and truly drilled into our brains as the best of the best back, 10 years ago.
That was them too. For the first
Yep.
however many years, they did that very much so on purpose and very, very well.
They were very, very smart. And I mean, were smart. They are smart people, but what they did in 2010, I feel like was the first time someone really made a huge step as a commentator in an esport to make a huge play with planning ahead and getting their foot in the door. Like right now, it's happening all the fucking time. Valorant's on the way, and everyone's got their dicks out for that because they want to be the big casting pair or the big pro team for Valorant. It'll be the same deal when the next Battle Royale game comes out. It'll be the same deal when the next Overwatch killer comes out or whatever the fuck people are making now. Like, people just want to be the first and the best. And I feel like Tastosis kind of, like, I can think all the way back to Counter-Strike where the caster pairings and that sort of thing really kicked in was honestly like 2012 maybe with the release of CS:GO. Because
Sure,
Source, like, I feel like didn't have those big pairings yet, and didn't have a huge scene yet, because I mean, StarCraft 2 actually started the boom of esports in the West. So the amount of viewers went up, like just the people that cared about esports, companies and viewers, and just and that sort of thing really blew up with StarCraft 2. So it's kind of hard to know because I don't remember the source scene very well. But casting pairings, I feel like, started with Tastosis and is something that's happening a bit in other esports, specifically in Counter-Strike. I know that there's pairings that just are always that pair. They will never interchange.
Yeah.
You know.
It's apparently a bit complicated without revealing any industry secrets. But the general idea is that it's a good idea. As far as becoming a Tastosis, as far as from I understand, it's basically impossible. Tastosis has kind of been the timing of them, the branding of them, the actual performance of them, something that was unmatched and also not replicated.
Not
Since
replicated,
then,
yeah.
for a few different reasons.
And
But
again,
you're right,
like,
there are duos.
there are duos, yeah. And and also, to their credit, it's not like they just used all their contacts to create something amazing. They're also very good at what they do, so they stuck around, and they're still relevant to this day because they still, they're great. There are very few haters of Tastosis out there. Very few.
Yeah, very few.
And there are also people out there that will only watch when Tastosis are casting, which is another thing that I think only doesn't exist for other casters.
I believe so. We kind of touched on the Pylon show about like the surprise YouTube viewers when it moved off of Twitch, and we had a couple of our suspicions about that. But a lot of the casual audience who would be like, you know what, I kind of want to watch StarCraft 2. What are Tastosis doing? It's
Exactly.
kind of their go-to.
Yeah, they'll be like, I've even had people reach out to me from other esports when I'm like, oh, GSL's on, and they're like, oh, Tastosis, I love those guys, and they'll come back in and they like don't care about StarCraft.
yeah, it happens.
Yeah, I think that doesn't exist in any other caster, because there's not really pairings outside of them. So there's no other caster in StarCraft 2 that garners that kind of following or respect or like fanboyism.
Right. And if there could be, I mean, we might never know, because building a brand would be extremely difficult. I mean, that comes down to like literally saying no unless they bring the other guy, which is a very difficult stance.
To go back again, like I think that it is possible to have a viral explosion and a big following even in the current climate of our game, because I think that we have a very hardcore audience that could be made bigger by bringing in a few more of the casual audience. Like that, there is actually a very big untapped casual audience for StarCraft 2, and I'm talking like potentially millions. And I'm not kidding. I'm not insane. Of people that play single player and that's it. That you could.
Okay, yeah.
That you could actually slowly nudge them towards the esport. I think if you get a few of those people in there, or a good percentage of those people in there, you could almost like double the viewership of things. I think it's very, very hard to do, and I'm trying to, like, honestly, that's one of my that's a mystery that I'm trying to crack here. I'm a PI in my little office with my like feet up on the table with my with my bottle of whiskey and my cigar, and I'm trying to figure out this mystery. It's not the Maltese Eagle, the Maltese Falcon. I'm trying to solve getting casuals into this game's esport. That's something I'm trying to solve right now. Like, with the videos I'm putting out on YouTube, and how I broadcast as well, being very, trying to be very accessible and friendly and likable, and which, I mean, I'm not trying to be those things. It's just it happens, or it doesn't.
Very natural.
Yeah, thank you. But trying to be that kind of person, like to be another Day 9, I think is possible. I don't think I could be that person because Day 9's a huge brain, whereas my brain is smoother and not as groovy. I think that there are a few people out there that could definitely have that kind of explosion. I think Pig is very close. I think you could do it as well, but I think that I am more of an entertainment guy, and if I made a bunch of entertainment meme stuff, like say maybe a less abrasive Destiny kind of character, I could be that maybe.
Oh boy.
Yeah,
Okay,
like I'm
alright.
like yeah, like I'm like not abrasive. I don't like politics. I don't care about any of that shit. I'm not going to get in trouble. I'm not going to put my dick up on the internet. But I am going to, be funny and have big moments and stuff like that. That I think that's possible for me as a person to build up a brand that way.
Mm-hmm.
And have cool moments with Twitch and streaming and on camera at live events as well, and hopefully on YouTube, which I'm trying to work on a bit more.
Well, we've already gone quite far, so just one last topic.
Oh my Jesus!
One last
Yeah,
segue here.
Are we talking about 3 hours? My God, is that how long?
I don't know about 3 hours, an hour and a half.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I thought we started at like 11:30 my time, but I guess not. We started a little bit later.
No.
Okay.
Not that much, but yeah, we should be wrapping it up. But anyways, what you were talking about segues well into one of my last potentially big discussions. We'll see. But do you ever find yourself looking at other esports? I kind of know the answer to this, but looking at other esports or other traditional broadcast sports and how they broadcast and what they do, and wish that StarCraft did anything similar, or on the flip side, you're super thankful StarCraft 2 doesn't do?
I am actually very thankful that there's a lot of things in StarCraft 2 that are the way they are. I think that I'm one of those people that believes, for instance, like I'll hear a lot from normies, for lack of a better word.
Oh boy.
I'll hear a lot from normies, and let's call them boomers. That's an esport has. Like for instance, like my parents, or like people their age, or like people that are my age but really don't game at all. They are like, oh, I wonder if esports, they'll talk about, oh, that's cool how video games is for you can play games for money. That's sick. I really hope it gets on TV one day. And I'm one of those people that's like, I feel like TV is like it's a legacy thing to me. TV is an old school dying format, and streaming is the future. I mean, even with TV, streaming is already happening right now, and people are streaming on, getting into it, like Netflix, etc. It's destroying regular free-to-air TV, and I feel like esports doesn't need TV. It doesn't need a lot of those old school things that have been in sports broadcasting for 100+ years. I think that we actually have a very cool thing going with us right now. I think that honestly, real sports could learn from us and not the other way around. I think there's definitely like it started with esports sort of getting inspired a lot by real sports commentators, football commentators, soccer commentators. I mean, football's everything to some people, but whatever. You know what I mean? Like the real sport commentators, the non-esports commentators, they definitely were influenced. They influenced a lot of us. Like I personally have been influenced by them, of course, as I mentioned it earlier, just from listening to it a lot, as being a fan of real sports growing up and playing real sports growing up, hearing those commentators and that commentary, and sort of borrowing a few of those things. But the current thing that we've got going for us, I feel like, is better for esports, and making it, like, for instance, putting us all in suits on a desk with a very flashy background, I actually feel like doesn't super fit. You know what I mean? Like I know that's
super professional.
Yeah, I know it's expected.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's expected because that's what it looks like. But that's just something that's been put into our brain. Like, we have been told what it looks like. When really, you think about, a gamer or someone that's into gaming, that don't really ever dress like that. And I loved, and I had this conversation with Apollo like last year, and we didn't really talk about it this year because it kind of just happened. But at I Am Katowice, we just went up there in our clothes. We were just wearing gaming shirts, t-shirts, hoodies. And we were broadcasting in that, and it felt, honestly, a lot more freeing and comfortable. Like, I'm actually someone that I like wearing a nice suit, and I find it very nice. Like, I actually quite like wearing a good shirt. It feels good. Having a jacket on feels nice. But I feel like it feels a little, I feel like as a gamer, it's not really, it's one of those things where we're still clinging to what sports should look like, rather than what we have in our brains as an image of what sports look like, rather than, maybe making our own thing. But I do like that it's more like esports stuff is it feels a lot more genuine when you watch it, whereas with real sports broadcasts, there's a lot of, they'll plan their jokes ahead of schedule. They'll have a very, they'll be all teleprompted, all scripted, whereas esports is 99% of it is unscripted, unfiltered. I mean, we do still filter ourselves, but there's no bleeping, there's no teleprompter really, there's no pre-planned script, and we're not sitting there going, oh, you should say this, you should say that. Like sometimes that exists, of course, but I feel like we're very natural, and like I can tell it's natural as well as a viewer. You know what I mean? And I think that's just so much nicer for a budding industry. I don't know if you want to call it $1 billion industry budding, but esports I think is just is compared to others, I think still budding.
Mm-hmm.
And I forget the initial question. Am I rambling here? I think I'm still on point.
You are. I asked if you found anything in other esports broadcasts or traditional broadcasts.
Other esports broadcasts? Yeah, there are things in other esports broadcasts that I think would be cool to use. In fact, we use some of it, like the augmented reality stuff on a technical sense. We started using that at IM Katowice. And I thought that was cool because I saw that in other esports and I thought it looked nice. Do you think it can look a little bit janky sometimes and it needs a little bit more time in the oven, but it could be cool? That's just on a technical sense. As far as broadcasts go, I would really like to try caster pairings. I think that would be cool. That's something that CSGO does that I think would be a cool experiment, if not a better thing for StarCraft 2 commentators. I know it's in Overwatch League as well, pairings, but I'd be interested to see how it goes in StarCraft 2. I have a theory that it would go very well, but that's just a theory.
Right.
And what else? I think that what I would really like from sports, in specifically StarCraft 2, is their money. I really want their money because I feel like as StarCraft 2, for instance, people will watch a show like I really hated seeing from a fan, and I get it because they don't know, right? But that you would see your generic StarCraft 2 fan, specifically last year and the year before, look at IM Katowice and look at WCS and go, why can't it be like IM? Why is DreamHack so much worse than IM or whatever? And it's like, bro, IM has a big budget and DreamHack does not. And it's honestly a lot of the time, a lot of the thing that stops us from putting on that special, very awesome, highly produced show is the dollar. It's the dollar. It's the almighty dollar. And I wish we had a little bit more of it to really blow people's socks off with a great broadcast.
I feel like that answer is like when you're like, you have to bring one thing to a deserted island and you're like, a phone that works to call a ship. Like, and you're just okay.
A phone that connects to the satellite so I can call a ship. Yeah.
Like, okay, good one. Like, money would fix a lot of things.
Yeah, and we don't have enough of it. That's something that I think that esports is still catching up in. We just don't have the infrastructure to put on the big broadcasts, the things that smash people. I mean, I know it exists. The giant Worlds finals for League of Legends, the Overwatch League finals, even our StarCraft finals. There's a big difference between all of those versus like your regular broadcasts. And wouldn't it be fucking amazing to fill a stadium every 3 months or something like that? Wouldn't that be wild? People think that prize pool doesn't matter and production doesn't matter. It's just about the games and the commentator and this sort of thing. It's they're not wrong. If the game's great, of course that matters. If the commentator's good, of course that matters. But people are really turned by, especially if they're not a super fan. If someone sees that the prize pool is $1 million, fuck yeah, they're tuning in. Hell yeah, they're tuning in. Absolutely. If the prize pool's $10,000, yeah, that's a good chunk of change. But if the prize pool's $1 million, maybe $500,000 for first place, fuck yeah, they're tuning in, even if they're outside of StarCraft. That's something that turns so many heads. And the international, with its fucking giant prize pools, has so many people that don't give a fuck about Dota. 365 days of the year, they don't give a fuck except for that one day where the TI finals. Then they'll tune in because someone's about to become a millionaire.
Yeah, that's why I tune in.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just
exactly.
spectacle.
Exactly.
It's the glamour.
It gotcha. And we want a lot of ZombieGrubs out there. People that are like, I don't care about the sport, but that money's a lot. And then if we have good commentators, all of a sudden we got a new fan. You know what I mean? We just got to get them in there. We gotta sweeten that honey pot to get the people coming in. You know.
Yeah. Well, my last question is just more of a personal interest, but wouldn't you be like scared of being paired with a caster and never having the ability to work with any other caster again?
Oh, if the pairing goes sour, yeah.
Well, there's that, but also just, some mixing it up, right? Like you're going to be married to this person.
Yeah, I mean, I do kind of like the sense that we can sort of, swing around.
Swingers.
Swinging around, yeah. We all walk up to the broadcast and put our keys in the bowl, and then whatever happens, just play it safe. But in all seriousness, I think it would work well, and I think that there aren't any pairings that I think would, because we all get along so well. I can't imagine a pairing like being paired with someone and it not going well. I don't know.
But restricted to one. That's
Restricted
the tough
to
part.
one.
What if it's
Yeah,
me
so
and
like,
Pig and
yeah.
neither one of us cast with you again?
Oh my God, you're
I
right.
know.
I would hate that.
Yeah.
Oh, you're right. Jesus. Like I'm here thinking about being in a pair with someone and going, yeah, it'd be cool. But then I'm thinking about, but then that means I can't cast with anyone else ever. Oh no. If Pig takes you away from me, ZombieGrub, I'd be so mad.
Most people love the Aussie cast, so I think they'd be upset as well.
Yeah, right. That's it. Yeah, that's a tricky one. I think maybe we're so used to, as a StarCraft fan, as StarCraft fans, we're so used to having our casters interchanged out that maybe it wouldn't work. Maybe people would just be like, when's Maynard and Pig casting together, or when's Maynard ZombieGrub casting together, or when's ZombieGrub Pig? Where's my combo? Where it at? And it just doesn't come. I don't know. I still would love to see it as an experiment. I would love to see it.
Yeah, me too.
Just
I'd
out
love
of
to see
interest.
if anything develops, like you really do feel like your commentary is up a little bit by day 2 or day 3.
I also think that in the climate of this game, we're talking about safe bets and that sort of thing. I think that in the climate of the game, I'm one of those people that I think I'm not. I know that there are a lot of people that think the way that I think as well. That with StarCraft not being the biggest esport in the whole world, I really think that we should be making risks, doing risky experimental things, rather than doing what's safe and known. Because safe and known doesn't build the game, I think.
Yeah.
It could stay at a very like relevant level. It could still keep that fan base, but some people don't see that as maintaining. Some people see that as stagnant. And I'm one of those people that doesn't like to rest. I don't like being mediocre, and I'm not okay with being mediocre. And I'm not okay with the game that I love being mediocre either. I don't want to just sit there and be one level the whole time. I want to grow it,
I think that was one of the fair, valid criticisms of the WCS system from 2016 to 2019.
Sure, it wasn't a whole lot of risks taken, and I think something that really irked me from a caster sense of things. You know this, and I'm going to tell the listeners this as well, is that I've been championing ZombieGrub for a very long time to be an international broadcast, and she was hired, in my opinion, like at least 2 years too late for an international event. I'm like, what are you doing? Like I didn't see the risk at all, but I could understand that to maybe Blizzard or whoever or IEM, like, who is this person?
Yeah.
And it's not just me saying it as well. Like, I'm saying it, Roddy's saying it. The other commentator were just like, we know this caster. They're very good, and they would just not want to take that risk. They're like, I want the, even grabbing people that aren't as active in the game anymore. They're like, I want this person because they're a safe bet. Instead of grabbing the person that's, a very active person in the game that plays the game a lot, streams the game a lot, and has a fast growing fan base, like someone like that. And I'm like, you should be rewarding these people, the people that love and are part of your game all the time, every day. You should be rewarding them. And they're also, you shouldn't just reward anyone that does that. They are also good.
Yeah, gotta be good.
They got to be good. So, I really wish that more risks were taken earlier, because I feel like the climate of the game could be a lot different right now. I mean, I also hate going woulda, shoulda, coulda, but it's more of like you got to learn from history, right? You don't want it to repeat itself. So I think going forward, I think that our new decision makers like Apollo, etc., are very much agreeing with me that they think risks need to be taken. And things need to be shaken up for the game to grow potentially. So yeah, I'm definitely in that camp. And sorry for taking like hours of your time.
That's fine, man. I hope the listeners really enjoyed it, because I enjoyed listening to the smooth bass of your voice.
Oh, thank you very much.
I could
Thank you
sit
very
here
much.
for hours.
Oh, there you go.
I just want to make it clear to the viewers, I did not pay Maynard for the end compliments.
No, actually, this is something that I do on the regular. ZombieGrub's probably annoyed by
He
it.
does.
She's like, oh, I'm gonna be in a call with Maynard. That means he's gonna compliment me, and he's gonna he's gonna say that I should have been casting a long time ago. Oh, said it all before.
Yeah, I really feel like occasionally it's brought up, and I'm just like, man, people think I set it up, didn't they?
No,
they're just like,
never.
she probably slipped him a 50, and Maynard was like,
No,
yeah, I'll
never.
take that if I compliment you.
No, I'm sorry, viewers. I actually do this on the regs on the regular. This is yeah.
Well, we're bringing it back to the beginning. You wear your heart in your sleeve, right?
That is true. Yeah, you're right up there on my sleeve. I got a ZombieGrub face on my Metallica t-shirt that I'm wearing right now. Right up on my sleeve right there. Oh yeah, yeah. I got that patch sewn on every single t-shirt that I own. It's good.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Well, that's gotta cut it, because this has gone on for a long time.
Yeah, okay.
Said it before. Totally open to episodes 2 and whatever, and probably even some specific subjects, roundtable discussions. Like, there's a lot to talk about when it comes to just casting, more than perhaps people expect. But I hope they enjoyed listening to you talk about pretty much just commentary, because I certainly did.
I love this talk, and I'd love to do it again. I'd love to come back, and hopefully everyone listening liked it too.
Hopefully. What are you doing? Where can they check you out?
What am I doing? Well, I'm on Twitch TV Maynard. So it's just my name with Twitch TV in front of it and a slash. And I am streaming 99% StarCraft. I do sometimes stream other games. Especially lately, I've been, I have one broadcast a week that goes really, really late at night. So the next day I feel completely wrecked. And the idea of laddering while very tired and with a headache is like not a good way to play StarCraft, because you're going to lose a lot of points. So I usually stream a different game and experimenting with that right now. And so far, it's going pretty well. So go to Twitch TV Maynard, where you will see lots of StarCraft casting. ZombieGrub mentioned at the beginning of the podcast 6 hours ago that I am a replay caster as well. So if you want to have your replays casted by me, you can subscribe if you feel like it. That is basically my consistent income while we're in this lull with the coronavirus and such. We don't have any international broadcasts. That's kind of it. We just got our Twitch streams right now. ZombieGrub's kind of the same. So support me there if you want to support. Well, I mean, ZombieGrub's obviously got deals all over the place.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
We call her Zombie $1 Million Grub. That's her nickname. But we're very much relying on our Twitches right now. So if you want to hang out and interact with me, talk to me, questions, anything, I'm always very cool to talk with my chat. I love the live broadcast experience, and I like it when people like it too. So come on down, see if you enjoy it. And I'm also like I mentioned, doing YouTube stuff, trying to do some more introductory new player content for StarCraft on my channel with a lot of production and stuff. I'm all about that face value, guys. I'm all about polishing something until it looks good. And that's my video content on YouTube. So check it out, youtube.com/Maynarde SC2. I'm on Twitter as well. I forgot about that. Maynarde SC2. That's it.
Excellent. I think that covers it.
I think that's everything. Thank you, ZombieGrub. I'm sorry for taking so much of your time, but I enjoy this chat a lot. So it didn't feel like 6 hours. It didn't feel like it. It felt like 30 minutes.
No, it did not.
No.
Yeah, maybe approximately an hour and 50.
Something like that. Yeah.
No, it was a wonderful time talking with you. I mean, you're obviously another one of the commentators that I'm very close with. So it's always fun to talk to you and get some opinions that maybe I know in advance, a little bit of a cheat sheet, but I still learn new things as well. So thank you for coming on to my podcast and letting me just ask you questions. It was a fun time. So,
my pleasure.
Guys, please go make sure to watch and follow Maynard on his YouTube, as well as his Twitch and any offline casting that hopefully will happen, ETA, maybe one day. And until then, just thank you so much for listening. Check out the Patreon, and I will see you guys for episode 3 next week. See ya. Thanks to the people who already supported the Patreon over at patreon.com/ZombieGrub. Future podcasts will have video included for the YouTube release. The next goal is to look into designers for a logo and overlay for the video. Please check out the rewards, such as receiving early access. And thanks for listening to Caster Calls.